Have you ever held a dream so massive it barely fit in your tiny hands as a child? This is the tale of a boy alone in the world, clinging to a dream brighter than his reality. To rise among legends, to have the world know his name on the court. Years later, he's stacking shelves by day and chasing grades by night. When the weight of reality makes his dream feel like a distant galaxy. Still, he dribbles and shoots under moonlight until fate, disguised as a scout, stumbles upon him. He's pulled into an underground arena where only the best dare to compete. A battleground that could launch him to stardom or crush his dream completely, or let his name fade into the shadows forever. The only issue is that he's against other top players in the country who are ready to cut each other's throats to win the competition. The story begins in the summer of 2024 in the West Coast. Overtime Elite tryouts the game is free for all, and all competitors compete against each other. The crowd is very excited and cheers on their favorite contestant. Meanwhile, in a VIP section of the stadium, some high-ranking individuals watch the game and consider young blood that they can invest in. A nearby monitor displays that the top players among the contestants are three individuals named Malik. Carter and Eli, one of the VIP members, is amazed. Since it's his first time seeing the Overtime Elite tryouts in person, he declares that 9 players are participating in the tryouts, and their job is to score on each other. At the same time, since there are no teams on the basketball court, several guys are seen reaching out for the ball and trying to grab it from every other person. The VIP member continues by saying the free for all seems chaotic. While watching all 9 contestants try to grab one ball, he wonders if this is really basketball since it defies the norm. Meanwhile, one of the contestants quickly grabs the ball and hurries to score a point, while the others were shocked by how fast he moved. Look at him from behind, one of the scouts in the VIP section. Gray, who has been watching the game all along, explains to the investors that the Overtime Elite Academy only accepts players with the highest potential from around the world. He further explains that these tryouts are meant to vet raw talent, to see if any of the contestants are worthy of their consideration. The Fat Cat investor questions his ideologies, wondering how such a brute game is testing anything. He believes all 9 contestants are just wrestling for the ball, and this doesn't tell them which of them is a good player. Gray decides to ask him a simple question to prove his point. He asks him how it's possible to train the next generation of prodigies to be greater than all the players before them. Meanwhile, on a basketball court, the guy who had taken the ball still manages to hold on to it, despite the other members being on his tail. Gray decides to answer his own question when he doesn't get a reply by saying the simple way to do that is to eliminate everything people know about basketball and build them anew. He claims that it is from such a form of chaos that a new wild card with new possibilities is born. He also corrects the investor's mistake, that there are just 9 players on the court, and informs him that he would have noticed that there are actually 10 if he was paying attention. Meanwhile, the guy with the ball successfully blows past everyone behind him, and it seems that he's not planning to let go of the ball anytime soon. Oddly, he runs into one guy who just stands in front of the hoop. Waiting for him, he wonders what the guy is doing, just standing in front of the hoop like a moron. But he decides to just blow past him like he had done to everyone else. As he rushes past him, the new guy quickly hits the ball from off his hands. Shocking him, our new guy asks him where he thinks he's going and quickly moves away with the ball. To his dismay, the new guy runs away with the ball at breakneck speed, literally leaving trails of lightning sparks behind him. He easily gaps the rest of the guys and moves towards the hoop, determined to score a point. He tells his opponent, who is still stunned to see that he has lost the ball, that he feels quite lucky. To make it clearer, he explains that he's quite lucky to be playing next to predictable trash like him because it easily makes him look like a god. The scout continues to explain to the VIP members, who are now getting angry at his analysis. He tells them that each contestant can choose to play conventionally if their goal is to beat another player. But the only issue with that is that Overtime Elite only recruits the greatest athletes. He explains that from an academy full of wild cards, they'll finally be able to craft a legend. That is very different from what the world has seen. He stops talking to focus on the amazing thing going on in the court, as the new guy who had just taken a ball leaps towards the hoop to make a dunk. In a split second, he smashes the ball in the hoop, still carrying streaks of lighting with him due to his speed. We quickly move to a different scenery. A kid named Omari sits in front of an old TV and watches a basketball game. He explains that when you're young, They tell you to dream big and to try to reach for the stars. So he did as a kid. He tells himself that he's going to dominate the world of pro league players, and the entire world is going to know him. Years later, he ends up as a cashier at a candy store, and he recalls the good old days. He calls bull on the people who told him to reach for the stars as a kid. While he's picking his nose, a kid who is shopping in the store asks him for the price of one of the candy bars. Omari tells him it's $2, and the kid exclaims, surprised by how expensive it is. The kid tells him to screw himself, because the candy bar isn't even worth $1, and runs towards the door with it. Omari angrily climbs the counter to pounce on the kid, and asks him where he thinks he's going with the candy bar. The kid doesn't answer, but only wags his tongue at it, as he proceeds to escape with his prize. In an unexpected turn of events, Omari throws a nearby bag at the kid, and it lands on his head. After forcefully taking the money, he puts it in the cash register. The kid, who now has a bump on his head from where the bag hit, apologizes to Omari and calls him sir, afraid that he's going to get into more trouble. Omari just tells him to get out of the store. Jonathan, the store owner, who had witnessed the whole thing, thanks Omari for dealing with the thief. He tells him he can head out since he plans to close up for the night, and hands him his paycheck. Our guy is excited to have an early day off and receive his paycheck at the same time, so he quickly grabs the offer. As he heads out, he tells Jackson he's the man and happily leaves the store. On his way home, he thinks about a popular quote that says that fear is the stealer of dreams. He wonders how a person can have dreams in such a world. He quickly retrieves the cash and squeezes the empty envelope. As he thinks about how life drags you in every direction, he throws the envelope into a nearby trash can and is excited by how accurate he is. As he continues home, he passes by the basketball court and notices some kids playing a game. He decides to stop and stare for a while. As he watches them, he looks closely and is intrigued by how intense the match is going. He decides it's best he looks away so he doesn't go home late, and makes his way across the road. The moment he gets home, he tosses his bag on the ground and quickly grabs his basketball. He quickly greets his auntie and tells her he has come to drop off his stuff, and he'll be right back as he tries to tiptoe out the door, so she doesn't ask him too many questions. She comes out to meet him and asks him where he thinks he's going. She quickly takes that stance Big Auntie's take when you're about to get in trouble, and tells him she needs him to prepare dinner, and his little cousin Cassie needs him to help with her homework. She also reminds him that he hasn't done his own homework, and our guy starts to frown, realizing that he's never going to get to play basketball. He tries to explain to her that he just wanted to shoot a few baskets before coming back home, but she quickly takes hold of his ears and drags him away with it, telling him that he can go play basketball after his chores. As she drags him away, Omari drops the basketball, and she tells him that his family needs him right now, but basketball will always be there. Our guy grudgingly decides to wash the plates, while his auntie stands right behind him, with her arms crossed to ensure he does his chores. It's not also like he has a choice anyway. Grudgingly or not, he thinks to himself, and wonders how his life would be if he was allowed to focus on the things he actually wanted to do. Later on, he helps his little cousin, who looks very determined to draw her ABCs. After that, our guy coughs as he takes out the trash bags because of how much it stinks. In his aunt's defense, it's not like he didn't contribute to the trash. Later that night, Omari is seen in his room doing his homework. The room is plastered with several basketball posters and looks like every other teenage room. As he works on his homework, his table clock lets out a sound that lets him know it's 1:07:00 a.m. At midnight, he decides that he needs a break. So he leaves the room and goes to check on Cassie, whom he finds asleep. He goes to the living room and finds his auntie asleep on the table. After working for several hours on some papers, the papers on the table seem to be some patients. Test results from the Brooklyn hospital. Omari just stares at her and reaches into his pocket to bring out something. He drops his paycheck from his job at the store on the table, leaving it for her to find when she wakes up. He makes his way to his room's window and escapes out of it with his basketball. Meanwhile, in the dead of night, the scout from the overtime elite tryouts walks past the basketball court. After having drunk a little bit too much with his friends, he holds his head in pain, obviously having a hangover, and wonders why his friends always drink so hard. As he receives an incoming call on his phone, he remembers that he has to wake up to scout a game the next morning, which is going to be a total pain. Now that he has a hangover, he starts to curse, wondering what kind of mess he's gotten himself into. Meanwhile, right on the court next to him, Omari is seen bouncing his basketball. The scout is immediately drawn to the sound of the basketball and notices Omari, who is in his basketball clothes, bouncing the ball and moving across the court. He wonders what such a kid is doing out on the court so late. As he watches closely, he also wonders why our guy isn't shooting, but just bouncing. He's shocked when the realization suddenly hits him. From Omari's movement, Gray easily deduces that he's playing against someone. But there's no one there. It seems like he has an imaginary opponent, where he's playing against a ghost. Omari, who is entirely focused on the game, doesn't notice the man who is watching him and is just playing the ball, hoping to win the game against whoever he's playing with. Our guy locks eyes with his imaginary opponent and inches toward the hoop, blocking the opponent's attempt to grab the ball from him, where he finds an opening to score. A smirk develops on his face, but Gray, who is still watching, just thinks he must be crazy. As Omari continues to mop the floor with his imaginary opponent, the scout wonders, what kind of kid comes out to the court at this time of the night to play against themselves? He wonders why he is forming imaginary opponents, but his attention is quickly drawn away by his legwork. He decides that this may actually be what they've been looking for. As he watches him make a dunk in the hoop, he decides this must be the wild card they've been looking for. Gray smiles to himself and reasons that this terrible walk may not be a waste after all, and this may be destiny. As Omari lands on his feet, he suddenly hears a sound and notices the presence of someone else. Other than himself, he looks outside the court, towards the place where the scout is standing. But he finds no one there except some leaves carried by the wind. As the days go by, Omari becomes weary and tired of the boring cycle of his life. At work, he pouts at the sound of little kids excitedly approaching him to buy candy and other things. At school, he falls asleep and drools all over the table, while his teacher rants over his terrible behavior, and his classmates look at him. Our guy explains that he feels torn in every direction. When he gets home, he helps Cassie with her homework again, while his auntie continues her work at home. He tells himself that he can't give any of his routines up, even if he wants to, especially because they all feel necessary. At midnight, he resumes his match against 4 hefty, imaginary opponents, who are hell-bent on not letting him get past them. This night, they look like they've had enough of his nonsense, and have been training to show him who's boss. Nearby, the scout, who seems to have just left another meeting with some of his guys, watches as Omari plays again. Meanwhile, Omari dribbles the first guy that comes across him, wondering why they're playing aggressively tonight. He asks the other 3 ghosts if they're trying to stop him from driving at the hoop. He decides to dance to their tune and tells them he'll shoot at the hoop from where he is. In that case, as he shoots, the imaginary characters rush towards him to block his throw. They can't have him win against them this night. The ball goes across the court and towards the hoop. Unlike what our guy expected, it just hits the metal ring and bounces back. Omari is surprised that he missed, but he's more surprised when a random person catches the ball. It turns out to be Gray, who tells him he's been watching him for about a week now. He tells him he's never seen someone who only plays against their imagination. With a smirk on his face, Gray tells him that someone like him doesn't seem to know how to play with a team. Gray tells him he's unusual, which is interesting, and throws his ball back at him. Omari asks him what he means by him being unusual, when he's the one who just admitted to having secretly watched a kid for up to a week. The scout, who is taken aback by his comment, tells him he didn't mean it in that way. He tells him it may be time he plays against a real person to know how it feels, so he challenges him to a game. Our guy doesn't seem so excited, but reluctantly agrees before they begin. He reminds Gray that he needs to change into comfortable basketball clothes to play. Gray, who just smiles, gives him a key tip and tells him to worry about himself. Gray tells him he would like to make things more interesting, so he unlocks his briefcase. He tells Omari that if he can score on him, he'll give him $10,000, and he exposes the contents of the briefcase, revealing a wad of cash. That amount of money literally starts to emit light at Omari's face, and he staggers backward, wondering if the money is real. As he stares at the money, he reasons that such an amount would really help with things at home. As Gray closes the briefcase, Omari wonders who the heck this guy thinks he is. As a smirk develops across his face, he thinks this guy must be a big shot to be throwing around $10,000 like that, and this makes him want to beat him. Omari excitedly agrees to the game. He reminds the scout that this was his idea, so he tells him not to get mad when he robs him of his money. Gray just smiles at him and calls him a brat. Omari gives a slight chuckle and tells him it's time to play, with an evil look in his eyes. So at midnight, these two play a game to win $10,000 at the Brooklyn Public Courts in New York City. As Omari bounces the ball, Gray just stands there and doesn't try to take the ball from it. Our guy wonders if this guy is for real, since he's just standing there and not taking him seriously. Meanwhile, Gray just focuses on him and tries to deduce his next move. Omari decides that it's fine if he wants to just watch and let him take the money. He needs it more anyway. Omari rushes towards the scout, who heads in his direction to stop him, but he quickly swerves and dribbles him going the other way. After successfully dribbling and going past the scout, he screams out that the money is his, still with that evil look on his face. As he goes to score, seeing a clear path to the hoop, our guy celebrates the fact that he passed through, so he runs toward the hoop to win his prize. As he leaps towards the hoop to dunk the ball, Gray, who is still behind, commends his dribbling skills. But he suddenly appears behind him and hits the ball against the hoop. The ball hits the flat surface and bounces back, much to Omari's dismay. Gray sarcastically asks him if he's not too confident for someone who talks to ghosts, as they both land on the ground. Omari wonders what an insane block that was. He watches Gray bounce the ball and make his way to the other end of the court, and he wonders how fast he must have moved to close out the distance. To come block the ball, our guy tells himself that he could have sworn that he had gone past him. So he wonders how he was able to block his ball. Omari wonders who the heck this guy is, and how he was able to move that fast. Before he can make some sense of what was happening, Gray just looks back at him with a smile and asks him if he's watching. Before he can reply, Gray tells him he's coming and dashes across the court to meet him. He swoops past him in the twinkle of an eye, which makes Omari exclaim. Gray has such a determined look on his face that shows that he's not playing around this time. This annoys Omari, and he tells himself he's not going to let this guy's speed catch him off guard. This time, Omari zooms across and covers the distance till he's side by side with the scout. He tells him he's not going to let him pass easily this time, and his quick reaction surprises Gray. Gray commends his quick reaction skills, but quickly bounces the ball behind his back to his other arm, which catches Omari off guard. While our guy tries to follow the ball, Gray quickly goes behind him and moves forward with the ball, telling him his reactions may be good, but they're not good enough. Omari watches in horror as he inches close to the hoop, realizing he's about to score. Gray gloriously leaps towards the hoop, and it looks like he's hanging in midair for a couple of seconds before our guy can reach him. He throws the ball into the hoop with such force that it almost breaks the hoop. Omari just stands nearby, watching the ball pass through in frustration when Gray lands back on the ground. He tells Omari that his drive earlier wasn't so bad. He explains that his spin move kept the ball away from him, which left him with two tough choices. The first option was to either try to recover and get between Omari and the basket, which wasn't such a good option. The second option was to exploit an opening after he had passed. Gray smirks at him and tells him it's obvious he knows what option he chose. He throws the ball back to Omari and proposes that they double the money, since he now knows what he's up against. He tells Omari that if he manages to score against him, he's going to give him $20,000 this time. Omari suddenly becomes angry that he would carelessly hinge such a huge amount on one shot and asks Gray if he's mocking him. Grace just smiles and asks him where all his confidence has suddenly gone, referring back to when he said this is going to be easy money. Omari, who is still angry, weighs the situation and realizes that although this man has many obvious openings, when you play against him, you realize that it's just a trick. He realizes that this guy is as unconventional a player as it'll ever get. So it's going to take more than just an easy play to win it. Gray just stares at him and lets out a low yawn, while Omari weighs his options. Our guy thinks about the money again and realizes he'll get to make all that money if he just scores one ball. He wonders what his Annie will do when she sees all that money. It's going to give her a chance to cool off from work. Gray just smiles as he watches him closely, realizing the weight of the decision that he has to make. Omari also considers that there's the plus of playing against someone this good and getting to weigh his skills against such a pro. He finally makes his decision with a feisty smirk on his face and tells himself that this stuff makes him really excited. When Gray gets tired of waiting, he tells him he's really an odd kid and says that he quit stalling so they can get to the game. Omari just gets right to it and tells him he's right, speeding towards him so he doesn't have much time to block him. He tells Gray it's time to settle this once and for all. As Omari speeds towards him, Gray realizes he's driving toward him even faster than before and starts to contemplate the options he has to stop him from scoring. He reasons that his first option is to cut his lane to the basket by standing in front of him. The second option is to let him pass and try to chase him and block his scoring. Like he did before when Omari inches close to him. He decides that he had already blocked the ball before, and that it'd be predictable. So he decides to just stay in front of him. When Omari notices that the man isn't moving and won't budge, this puts him on high alert, and he reasons that the game isn't going to go as it went before. He quickly starts to calculate his opponent's next move, and he realizes that if he goes straight towards him, the man will cut him off because he's positioned as a defense. He also considers going towards the right, but he realizes that he's still going to run right into him, and he'll get blocked. His last option would be to dribble him like he did last time, and shoot, but he'd have to slow down, which would give the man enough chance to catch up with him and block him suddenly. He realizes that the only way to beat a guy like this is to do something that he'd never anticipate from a guy like him by a guy like him. It means a guy who doesn't have proper training. He has to do something that he'd never expect from a random kid who's always playing by himself and hasn't faced any strong opponents. He has to do something that he wouldn't expect from just a big dreamer who just shows confidence on the outside, but knows he lacks the experience to climb up to the pro leagues. A series of thoughts flash through our guy's mind, and he imagines himself in the pro leagues right in that moment, and he visualizes the hoop that's before him. Omari thinks to himself, that's all right if this man decides to underestimate it. As he moves towards him, he continues to bounce the ball, determined to score. He decides that it's all right if he underestimates him, because that will be in his favor. And a fire lights up in his eyes as he drives forward. When he gets right in front of Gray, he thinks to himself that he's obviously blocking every path in his way. So he shoots the ball right through the opening in his legs. He tells himself that if Gray thinks it's smart to block all his openings, he'll just create a new one. The ball flies through Gray's legs and bounces right behind it. Gray is surprised by what had just happened because he didn't expect it. Before he can recover, Omari runs past him and picks up the ball that had gone through the opening in his legs with a smile on his face. Omari decides that the money isn't even what's making him so excited. As he gets closer to the hoop with Gray running frantically behind it, he reasons that what's actually exciting him is that he had forgotten what it was like to play an opponent. As good as this, he enjoys the extreme energy. He enjoys the exhilarating sensation. Omari leaps off the ground and prepares to dunk the ball in the hoop while he screams out in excitement. He decides that this is how a basketball game is supposed to feel. All the time our guy smashes the ball right through the hoop and even watches it fall right through. The energy is intense, and he's having the time of his life. Gray just stares at him, smashing in the ball in awe, realizing this kid really beat him. The ball lands on the ground and bounces away. As Omari picks it up, Gray commends his gameplay and tells him he didn't think he had such elite dribbling skills in it. He asks Omari why he chose to take such a risk by throwing the ball through his legs, since there was a chance it wouldn't work. Omari just stares at the ball and tells him that in all the scenarios he thought through, he beat him in all of them. So he realized there was only one way to win. The only way to win was to do something neither of them would expect. How could a kid come up with such genius-level game strategy in seconds? A sly grin creeps across Gray's face within moments. Then he cuts straight to what really matters, the cash. He slides over the briefcase, promising it holds the money, just as agreed. True to his word, Gray admits it only holds $10,000 for now, but reassures him the rest is waiting in his car. Omari stares at the briefcase, slack-jawed, like it holds the keys to heaven itself. His mind spins. Who even walks around with that kind of cash? His fingers stretch toward the briefcase, trembling with greed. A ray of imaginary light erupts out of it and hits his happy face. Before he can start counting the money, Gray tells him he has an offer for him, which causes him to quickly look away from the money. He explains that Omari can either take the $20,000 that's currently shining out of the briefcase, or he could take a ticket to the overtime elite tryouts. He brings out a silver ticket with several bright colors on it. Omari just looks at him cluelessly, wondering what the overtime elite is. He asks him what the overtime elite is, hoping he'll explain further. Gray tells him that if he has enough talents, the ticket in his hands can take him to the pro league. Omari's eyes suddenly light up when he hears his two favorite words, pro leagues. Gray just looks at him blankly and asks him what his decision is. He asks if he's going to take the $20,000 or his dreams. Omari just stares at him wildly with his mouth open. A moment ago, he thought winning $20,000 was the best thing that has happened to him. Now, this Omari just stares at him bewildered. He wonders who this guy is. It's odd that he's carrying around $20,000, and now he's making claims that he can take him to the pro leagues. Our guy's imagination quickly kicks in, and he sees himself in a big basketball stadium. He wonders if this guy can really take him to the pro leagues, or if he's just trying to swindle him off his money. While he thinks, Gray interrupts his thoughts and gives him something to consider before he makes a decision. He tells him that this isn't a direct ticket to the pro leagues, as he probably must have guessed. Rather, it's an opportunity to get into the pro leagues. Omari listens to him closely to know if this is worth losing $20,000 over. Gray continues and tells him that what he chooses to do with the opportunity is left to him, so he can't be blamed for how things turn out. He explains that his job as a scout is to find the greatest prospects in the world of basketball and to help them blossom. When Omari hears the word scout, he sarcastically asks if he is the scout of a college team, because if that's the case, he's just bluffing about being able to get him into the pro leagues. His words make Gray laugh, and he tells him that's not the case, but he's scouting for something more interesting. With a smirk on his face, he declares that he's a scout for the overtime elite. To explain further, Gray tells him that every year, billions of dollars flow into professional basketball. This money comes through players, advertisers, live events, and investors. To name a few, he asks Omari how he thinks all the basketball legends he has come to know and love came to be. Gray asks what he thinks of a secret society of the world's wealthiest and most powerful basketball enthusiasts who gather. A private league featuring the rise of the world's next great talent. Gray mentions that he knows Omari thinks he's crazy, but he tells him it's in fact true. Apparently, there's a secret world of basketball that fuels the professional leagues by recruiting new people who have shown great potential. That secret world is the overtime elite. He explains that it's a way for the most powerful basketball executive to invest in a rising talent early enough to make enough money as they become stars. This opportunity also creates a path for athletes with great potential to truly shine before the real gatekeepers of professional basketball. Lastly, Gray mentions that with the billions that flow into Overtime Elite, they've managed to build the Overtime Elite Academy. This academy is a basketball institution powered by state-of-the-art technology that was created to train the prospects into basketball future stars. He explains that in this institution, basketball is baked into every aspect of their lives. While there's students that eat basketballs, breathe basketballs, and live in basketballs, not literally anyway, accessing the latest tech gadgets to use to train, passing classes, and even getting better. Dorm rooms are based on how well they perform and are awarded to the very best. The academy's top performers are eventually those who graduate to the professional leagues, while the bottom feeders are expelled each month, so they don't take up space. After he's done explaining, Gray asks him one last time if this ticket seems interesting to him. Omari suddenly starts to blush. The thought of a school that trains and sends talent into the basketball professional leagues is too much for him to handle. When the thought seems too good to be true, he asks Gray if he really expects him to believe that a group that sounds like the Illuminati is funding a high-tech basketball academy. When he asks Gray if he's crazy, he just scratches his head, wondering what else he can say to prove his point. Gray confesses that it does sound kind of nuts if he puts it that way. Finally, he tells him that it's fine if he doesn't believe him, and tells him he can still take the money. Now, this is a tough choice for our guy. He considers the $20,000 and reasons that it was too good to be true anyway, but he's not sure. The thought of the academy flashes across his mind again, so he asks Gray what the catch is with the academy. Gray, who still has a smug look on his face, tells him the academy is simply built as a preparation platform for those they'd be sending into the pro leagues, because there's no point to opportunity if there's no preparation. He flashes the ticket again and tells Omari that the ticket allows him to gain access to the tryouts that get him into the academy. He adds again that it's not in his hands whether or not he survives the overtime elite tryouts, and that is entirely up to him. Gray informs him that they have scouts everywhere across the world, and they have secret tryouts all over the world each year, because people aren't supposed to know about them. In these tryouts, each contestant goes through a series of games to eliminate them. Those who fail will have the doors of pro basketball forever closed to them, but they're going to be the top 9 athletes who emerge from each tryout. And these are the ones who are going to be admitted into overtime. Elite Academy. Omari thinks to himself that all that sounds really competitive, and he starts to sweat. He thinks to himself That the worst part is that they probably went through the same test. He went through and passed, which means their skills are going to be no joke. The air becomes tenser as he weighs his options. He remembers that he has been waiting his entire life for an opportunity just like this one. Gray just stares at him while smiling. Realizing the war that must be going through his mind, Omari thinks to himself that becoming a professional basketball player has always been his dream since he was a little kid. So he doesn't understand why he's hesitated. When he's finally gotten that opportunity, Gray breaks the ice and tells him it makes sense that he'd be scared to take such an opportunity. Because it's high risk, he tells him the deal isn't for everyone. So he points at the briefcase and reminds him that he can still take the money if he's desperate for that. He also reminds him that if he truly believes in himself and his future as a professional basketball player, then the decision should be a no-brainer. Omari's eyes widen, and he opens his mouth as he realizes what Gray is getting at. If he doesn't take the ticket, it would really mean he doesn't believe in himself. Gray reminds him that it's fine if he takes the money, but the ticket could be worth much more than just $20,000 for him. He gets straight to the point and asks him a question that's on both of their minds. Gray tells him that the real question is not if he wants the ticket, but if he believes in himself. Omari just stands there unsure of what to do. At this point, he's between the devil and the deep blue sea. We skip to the point where Omari is seen climbing the ladder by his room's window, trying to sneak back into the house without alerting his auntie. When he gets back on the iron railing, he drags the briefcase with him. He slowly pushes up the window and holds the briefcase tightly. It looks like our boy went for the sensible decision. He holds the briefcase tightly as if his life depended on it. He won't want to lose such a great treasure because there's no way he'd live with himself. Meanwhile, Gray is seen discussing with the rest of the scouts at a board meeting. The rest of the scouts ask him if he's met his quota for the number of potential candidates he's allowed to bring into the tryouts. Gray just smiles and tells the man that it's hard to find talent worthy of the tryouts, but he's managed to find a few. The man notices the smug look on his face and mentions that it's rare to see, realizing that it can only mean one thing. The man asks if he's smiling because of what he's thinking. Gray immediately recognizes what he's talking about, and a smile breaks out on his face as he affirms the man's suspicions. He tells him plainly that one of the contestants he's found is definitely a wild card, which is exactly what he had said they needed. In the overtime elite tryouts, Gray mentions that whether or not this specific contestant cashes in the ticket is completely up to him at the house. Gray opens the briefcase and peers into it to look over its content. When he opens it, we see the silver ticket for the overtime elite tryouts. Glittering inside of it, this means he chose his dream over the money. Gray continues by telling the man that he's certain that his secret candidate will cash in the ticket because he had turned down a $20,000 offer because of it. Sometime later, Omari is seen heading somewhere with the ticket. Meanwhile, the other scouts at the table are surprised to hear what Gray had said. One woman exclaims and asks him if he really offered a high schooler $20,000 and asks if he's lost his mind. One other guy blankly tells him that crazy actions don't necessarily translate into results. Another friend of his reminds him that this is his last chance to find a candidate who will actually survive the tryouts. Gray just adjusts his glasses like he always does and tells them he'll give them those perfect candidates this time. The men remind him that none of the people he's brought recently made it to the final round, but he tells them to wait and see. A week later, Omari walks into a dead end where he is told to bring the ticket. He sees a brick wall and wonders if this is really the address that was given to him. He exhales in frustration and tries to make sense of his situation. He holds out the ticket, wondering if he missed his road. Suddenly, a computerized system scans his ticket through the walls and mentions that overtime elite trial participant number 300 has been confirmed, referring to him. The wall suddenly starts to open, and it looks like some Harry Potter stuff. A secret door pops out from behind the brick wall and exposes a bright, new world that had been hidden there all along. The system welcomes him to the next generation of basketball and waits for him to walk in. Omari thinks to himself that he's done living a life that he doesn't want to live. While he's thinking, the system reminds him that sharing any information about the overtime elites or its affiliates will result in a lifelong ban from all things basketball. While these guys really have some reach, Omari doesn't even listen to all that, and he imagines a new life where he can finally provide for his family and chase his dreams. At the same time, he decides that this ticket is the way he's going to finally bring those things to pass. With a determined look in his eyes, He tells himself that he's going to join the overtime elite and achieve his dream of becoming a professional basketball player, so he steps inside and climbs a series of stairs. Omari buoyantly walks past the stairs into a futuristic room. While he walks, he thinks to himself that he can't believe that he's here. He wonders what his aunt will do if she finds out he is skipping work and avoiding school just to go play some basketball. An image of his auntie sniffing the knife she'd used to gut him flashes across his mind, and he starts to sweat. He reasons that the worst part is not her finding out he had secretly gone somewhere, but that he had turned down $20,000, which will certainly make her kill them. He continues to sweat profusely. Due to fear of his aunt, Omari braces up and tells himself he doesn't even want to think about it. He takes courage and proceeds to continue what he started. He decides that all this risk is the very reason that he has to make this opportunity count. He remembers when he was a child and was playing on the basketball court while his aunt watched and cheered him on. He decides that he's going to bring back the impossible dream he had many years ago to pass. He boldly walks through the final passage, obviously ready to face all the consequences of his actions. The world that Omari breaks into makes him exclaim, because he's never seen anything quite like it. In the room, he notices several boys, just like himself, trying to toss imaginary basketballs into imaginary hoops. And he notices some men in black behind them, right in front of him. The men drag one of the kids away who claims that he could do better. He begs that they give him another chance, but the men just drag him away. Omari watches the men drag the kid, who's now begging not to be taken away, and he wonders what the heck is going on. One of the men in black immediately recognizes him as participant 300 and tells him that he's late. The man tells him to pick a spot and put on one of the overtime tryout goggles. The man doesn't explain what will happen next and tells him he'll figure the rest out. Omari mutters the word goggles to himself, wondering why. This entire scenario feels like a strange military experiment. He wonders why things are so high-tech since it's just basketball, and he walks toward the timer on the ground. As he steps on the timer, he immediately notices the kid right next to him, who is jumping up and down. He watches the kid expertly jump up and assume his throwing stance, and this captivates him. He watches closely and notices the boy completely focused on throwing the balls, so much so that he doesn't notice Omari watching it. He wonders what level of intense focus the guy must have to continue his own game. Omari looks right next to him and finds a goggle similar to the one the kid is wearing hanging on the terminal. He holds the goggles in his hands and reasons that it must not be so hard to just put on the goggles. He quickly puts it on so he can start his own tryout. He is alarmed by the sudden transformation of his environment as he puts it on, as the goggles seem to be some sort of reality-altering device. With the glasses, he can see the imaginary balls the other kids have been thrown. He also sees the percentages that are displayed on their hoops to record how many losses and wins they have. The guy next to him seems to have a perfect 100, while some other poor guy has gone as low as 23%. He finally understands why they've been jumping all along and notices that the guy next to him has a score of 100%, which means he hasn't missed a single shot so far. Suddenly, a virtual character that looks like a basketball appears to him. The creature happily welcomes him to the overtime elite tryout and refers to him as participant 300. Omari, who is scared to his bones by the creature, asks what the heck it is. The creature starts to frown and calls him rude. Probably a bad start for his game, because this creature would turn out to be his grader. The little cute creature introduces itself as the digital robotic intelligent basketball liaison, which is short for dribble. The robot explains that he has been assigned to him by Overtime Elite. It also mentions that he can call him Dribble for short. The robot explains that it's there to help him understand what he needs to do. In the different stages of the Overtime Elite tryouts, the robot explains that the first few tests are simple. Suddenly a series of virtual balls appear right next to Omari. The robot tells him that his first game is going to be a shooting range game, where he has to perfectly shoot basketballs, since he has been categorized as an offense player. This must be from the information that Gray had given them about it. The robot explains that a blue basket will flash before his eyes for 3 seconds, and his job is to make at least 60% of his shots to proceed to the next test. Omari picks up the ball and asks the robot if this is really augmented reality, because oddly he can feel the ball and its weight in his hands. The robot just brags that Overtime Elite has invested billions into their basketball augmented reality system and its state-of-the-art technology. It also further adds that there's no other system in the world that can beat it. Dribble cuts to the chase and asks him if he's ready for his 10-minute shooting trial, sounding like his high school coach. Omari starts to get tense again and begins to calculate how the game will go. He calculates that 10 minutes, with targets appearing every 3 seconds, would mean a few things. 1, he'd potentially be shooting around 200 shots. 2, he needs to make about 120 of those shots correctly to proceed to the next round, because that's the figure that would equal 60%. He asks Dribble what would happen if he doesn't make it to the next round, just to know what kind of heat he's under. Although it should have been clear from the guy that the men in black just dragged out. Dribble tells him that for starters, he'd be forbidden from speaking to anyone about his experience here. That's obvious. That's what happened in the Men in Black movies. You can never speak about what you see or they'll wipe your brains. Secondly, it also tells him that he'd be exiled permanently from Overtime Elite, and he'll be put on their blacklist. Meanwhile, the Men in Black are seen carrying away another poor kid who cries for mercy. Dribble finally adds that most pro recruiters in the world will never consider him again because he's such a loser. Omari starts to shiver, this time when he realizes the odds are against him. So Dribble cheerfully adds that losing this one game is equal to him kissing his dream of pro basketball goodbye. When he's done talking, Omari just shivers with the ball in his hands. Meanwhile, Dribble cheerfully asks him if he's ready. Like every other emotionless AI system out there, he adds that he's behind schedule compared to every other person, and he'd like to move things along. Omari just blankly stares at the ball in his hand. I think he wishes he had taken that $20,000 right about now. He makes a bold face and tells the robot that he's already here, so there's no point stalling. He grabs the ball and prepares to make his first throw, and some lightning pops out of nowhere. Like usual, Omari throws his first shot and tells Dribble it's time to get started now. He's just as focused as the kid next to him. Minutes later, after he finishes the sessions, he thinks to himself that he thought those 10 minutes would be absolute hell, contrary to his expectations. He explains that it only felt like moments had passed. Meanwhile, his stats are seen to be around 72%, which means he's missed a few shots. When the counter reaches 8 minutes and 55 seconds, he prepares to make another throw. He looks at the hoop again, determined to throw the ball correctly. This time his stats have dropped, and he's at 59%. So much for being a wild card. Omari thinks to himself, but he can't remember the last time he's done a drill like this. As he continues to play, he shoots his next shot correctly, and his stats increase to 60%. He enjoys the fact that he's able to shoot to his heart's content and continues to reach for ball after ball. He keeps shooting balls and positioning himself for the next one, and he seems to be in another world of his own. As he throws another shot, he thinks to himself that he knows that he should have been terrified, but he doesn't seem terrified for some reason. Now his stats have slightly increased to about 62%. He continues to throw, and he reasons that this is the most fun he's had in a long time. This kid really loves the thrill of high-risk games. First, he loved the high while risking $20,000 on a single shot, and now his entire basketball career, he's giving some gambler vibes. Omari just smiles maniacally as he continues to shoot, enjoying himself. When the 10 minutes end, he realizes that he has passed. Now he's dripping with sweat. The system displays his performance and tells him that after 10 minutes, he could have taken 200 possible shots, but he took 181 and made 122 shots. That's impressive. Dribble looks happy that he passed, because he would have to eliminate him if he didn't. Omari just reasons that he barely passed, and a lesser point would grant him an unwanted appointment with a Man in Black. After the test, the system displays another statistic that shows that 92 players were eliminated out of 300 initial candidates. Dribble just tells him that the little test was just the beginning. In other words, that's just warm up. You gotta be kidding me. The first test is an endurance test, where each candidate is supposed to maintain their dribbling position. For a full hour, Omari looks determined to wait out the whole hour. But some other guy nearby just collapses from exhaustion, with just about 3 minutes left on his timer. He keeps passing the tests, and it comes to the third one, which is to survive, dribbling through a very odd obstacle course 5 times in a row. The ground is so porous that he could easily lose the ball or fall into the ground. He passes the next few tests and ends up in the 5th one, which is a strength test. Every contestant is supposed to do 100 sit UPS and push UPS. To pass this test, Omari just keeps at it, determined not to waste this opportunity. One other monk-looking guy just collapses nearby due to exhaustion. It's possible he spent too much time meditating instead of working out. After doing 100 sit UPS and 100 push UPS, Omari comes outside, literally shaking, and confesses that he's exhausted. Dribble just tells him that it's time for him to do the last preliminary test before he can go to the real tryouts. Omari, who is now sweating like he just came out of sauna, exclaims when he realizes this wasn't even the tryouts. He starts to imagine what the real tryouts would be like, or the academy and the crushing weight of the thought causes him to fold up. Dribble just continues and excitedly tells him that they had created a special surprise for him based on the data collected about it from the earlier conducted tests. The surprise turns out to be a holographic opponent that's created by the Overtime Elite system. Apparently, the system is an exact replica of his current playing skills. Omari just stares at the hologram in surprise. I mean, everyone wants a clone, but not one that would fight against you, like every other gambling maniac who loves the thrill of odd situations. Omari just smiles at the hologram and says, "That's interesting." He walks up to his hologram, and Dribble explains that the next test is a simple one. It explains that it's going to be a 1-versus-1 game, and it's going to be a best-of-3. A best-of-3 match is a 3-round game. The big question now is, can Omari beat the current him in a game? Omari just folds his arm and smiles at his hologram, who just does the same thing. Meanwhile, at Omari's workplace, his aunt comes to the shop to buy something. When she steps in, she screams out his name so he can attend to her. She finds one of Omari's co-workers, Stan, on duty. Stan seems to be having an argument with some little boys who are making fun of him. Stan, she's convinced Omari was supposed to be on duty today. She nods at Stan, casually asking if Omari just stepped out for a break. Stan freezes, visibly taken aback by her question. His face drops, dark and heavy, like a storm just rolled in. He mutters coldly, telling her not to speak that name around him, because he's the one stuck covering Omari's shift. Well, he should have been at home, finally catching some rest. Stan admits Omari reached out to him earlier that day, said he was sick. Omari's aunt listens, stunned and confused, wondering where Omari could be and why he cooked up such a lie. Her eyes suddenly light up with fire, and she becomes extremely pissed off as she thinks about how she'll tear him limb from limb. At the Overtime Elite tryouts, Omari begins his 3-round game against his hologram, while Dribble watches nearby. The game appears to be intense, and the hologram seems not to be giving Omari any breathing space, which has Dribble on his toes. Our guy realizes that Overtime Elite has really put a lot of money and time into its technology, because the hologram plays just like him. Like Dribble had said, Omari wonders how their system is able to capture his manner of play, right to the last detail. The worst part is that because the hologram is not human, it doesn't get tired at all. So technically, it's the better version of him. Omari realizes that if it comes to a battle of stamina, he'll lose big time. The score on the leaderboard shows that Omari has 1 point, while his hologram has another. One of them has to score up to 3 points to win the game. And things aren't looking so good for our guy right now. While playing, Omari wonders why he can't seem to be able to drive the ball past his hologram. While he's thinking, the hologram suddenly grabs the ball right out of his hands. Omari is shocked, and he realizes he's in big trouble, because the hologram will go straight for the hoop. The hologram smirks back at him, with exactly the same facial expression he gives after he steals the ball from an opponent. Talk about a taste of your own medicine. Omari wonders how the hologram was able to steal the ball, but it's too late. He wonders that they're just the same, and as such, he shouldn't be better than him. But the hologram just heads right to the hoop to score. As the hologram leaps toward the hoop to score the ball, Omari runs hot on his heels. But it's too late on the Overtime Elite screen. Some investors along with a few fans watch the game. One of the scouts mentions that the game is boring, but Gray doesn't say anything. The man continues to say that although Omari looks credible, he can't even hold on to the ball. The man expresses that he doubts Omari can make it past the preliminary test. Gray, who is standing nearby, corrects the men by telling them that they would be unable to notice a wild card, even if he framed it and puts it under their noses. The man becomes angry and asks him who he thinks he is. The man makes fun of him and reminds him that he's still looking for contestants to bet on, who will survive the Overtime Elite tryouts. Gray tells him to shut up and keep watching, so he can get to see the contestant who will survive. The Overtime Elite, Gray continues to smirk, and he publicly declares to them that he chose this wild card for a reason. Referring to Omari, it's odd how Gray is still so confident in it. Well, he's just 1 point away from being eliminated. The scoreboard quickly updates, and a hologram is given 2 points, while Omari still has 1. Dribble exclaims and tells Omari that just 1 more basket by the overtime elite hologram, and he won't even get to reach the tryouts. Omari tells Dribble to shut up and let him think, because what he's saying is pretty obvious. The tension is high, and Omari tries his best to gauge the situation. He reasons that if the hologram is an exact replica of him, whatever weakness he saw in him that allowed him to take the ball so easily must be in the hologram too. He watches the hologram stand in front of him to guard the ball and wonders how he can find that weakness. He finally exhales, realizing that what he's about to do is pretty risky, but maybe his card to winning the game. Suddenly, Omari tosses the ball to the hologram, and Dribble almost loses his mind, because it looks like Omari is hell-bent on losing this game. Even the other scouts choke with surprise, because they've never seen a contestant toss his opponent the ball. Dribble shouts at Omari, asking him what he's doing. The hologram just catches the ball thrown at it, and is also surprised that Omari would throw the ball at it, because that is unconventional in basketball. Omari just ignores them all and tells them that he came here to chase his dream of becoming the world's greatest basketball player. He screams out that he's trying to find out his own weaknesses by watching how the hologram would drive with the ball. He claims that it would be better to give up on that dream right there if he can't find out his own weakness, because that would mean he's not even worthy of such a dream. Gray seems to be the only person not losing his mind as he continues to smirk at the current development. Dribble just tells Omari he's really crazy, but he tells him it's okay, since that's what they like over here at the overtime elite. The hologram begins to bounce the ball in a dribble position, so Omari watches him closely to catch the weakness in his position as the hologram continues to bounce and look for an opening to move past him. Omari also watches him to see how he had created an opening for the hologram to beat him the last time. He reasons through the several moves the hologram can make, which include driving the ball towards him or shooting from where he is. He recalls that the only way to exploit the weakness that the hologram exploited is to do what he did, which was to wait for him to drive the ball forward. Omari keeps watching patiently for the opening. He realizes that just one wrong move here, and that spells the end of his entire pro league basketball career. He watches as the hologram bounces the ball from his strong hand to his offhand as he watches the hologram switch hands. The realization suddenly hits him, and he finds the opening in a heartbeat. Omari quickly goes for the ball and catches it, while his hologram is passing it to his other hand. Omari runs past him with the ball in hand, while the hologram just stands there, wondering what the heck just happened. Meanwhile, the other scouts almost have a brain aneurysm from the excitement and unconventional nature of the game. They wonder why this kid gave up the ball, more so how he was able to steal it back. As Omari charges towards the hoop, the hologram looks behind him, still shocked by what has just happened. Gray explains to the men what had just happened. He tells them that a common struggle for young players is having a weak offhand, and he tells them that for most new players, dribbling with their dominant hand feels natural, but it takes discipline and training to have an equally strong offhand dribble. Gray highlights that one of Omari's weaknesses is that he tends to quickly dribble to his offhand and then back to his dominant hand right before driving to the basket, even though it's an odd habit or a quirk. Gray explains that the quick, split-second switch in hands usually results in a better dribble for him, but it also makes it the best moment for his opponent to steal his ball from him. Gray explains that Omari just put his overtime ticket on the line just to force himself to learn his own weakness and improve his gameplay. Meanwhile, on the court, Omari goes for the win while the hologram is hot on his tail. The hologram tries to block him, but it's too late as Omari tosses the ball right over the basket. Gray explains that now that he knows his weakness, he's going to use it to win again and again. The ball goes through the hoops, and the hologram just watches from behind. After the ball drops, Omari picks it up again. Immediately, he tosses the back to the hologram, and Dribble almost loses its mind. He asks why he's given the ball up again. Omari just tells him that if this hologram is truly built using data from him, then he'll have no choice but to make the same error again. The hologram just stares at the ball with despair on its face, realizing that Omari is right. Omari just grins like a villain and says that he, on the other hand, will never dribble like that again. Seeing how easy it was for him to steal the ball, during such a move. A few moments later, the scoreboard updates, and Omari has a score of 3, while the overtime hologram has a score of 2. Dribble quickly takes Omari to the next phase and tells him that the first phase of the overtime elites tryouts has finally been concluded. They both step into a room with several other guys who have also passed the first stage. Dribble leads him into a locker room filled with other guys who are changing into the overtime elite uniform and tells him the second phase will soon begin. He explains that the second phase is player versus player elimination. Eventually, out of the 300 players who were selected to try out for the overtime elite academy, only 9 of them will be admitted. These words just cause a smirk to develop on Omari's face, as he's a creature that thrives on a rush and the high of the moment. He tells Dribble he'd like to get right into it. As Omari proceeds into the locker room to join the other guys, he wonders why they're all giving odd vibes. All the guys in a room just glare at him and everyone else, obviously seeing each other as competition. Omari thinks to himself that they're all looking at him like monsters who plan to tear him apart. He notices that they all have uniforms already and have taken out the glasses that they used for the previous augmented reality game while he watches the guys. An announcement suddenly comes through a speaker nearby, congratulating the boys for making it through the preliminary tests of the overtime elite tryouts. The voice announces that they will now begin Phase 2. A large door that leads to the arena for the next phase suddenly opens. While they're all listening, the voice announces that the remaining participants should have already upgraded to the lenses that are in their lockers. Omari, who's still holding his glasses, realizes they won't be using their glasses for the next phase, so he decides to drop them. He opens his locker and finds some high-tech lenses, which he commends since they're way more compact. The voice also announces that they can proceed to the next room once they've changed into the official tryout jersey, while still applying his lenses. Omari is shocked to hear that he's supposed to have put on the jersey and wonders why he's not been given his own. He screams out that he doesn't have a jersey and realizes that he's about to be disqualified from playing the game without even playing. He quickly runs to several of the guys who are heading out of the door to ask them where they got their jersey, but none of them answer him because they all see him as the competition. Out of nowhere, a young chap named Tion walks up to Omari from behind. Tion tells him that he found an extra jersey hanging in the locker next to his own and asks if it's his. The jersey has the number 300 labeled on, so it happens to be Omari's missing jersey. Tion tells him he can have it if he wants, and Omari's face lights up and he even begins to blush due to Tion's hospitality. Our guy tells him that he's a lifesaver and thanks him for saving his behind. Tion just awkwardly scratches his head and tells him it's no problem. Suddenly, a really huge player drops his hands on Tion's shoulder and asks him if he didn't hear what he told everyone earlier. Tion's eyes immediately widen, realizing that he's gotten into some sort of trouble. The big guy named Osar reminds Tion that only 9 of them will survive the tryouts, which means that they're all enemies, and they shouldn't be helping each other get by. Tion just starts to sweat due to Oscar's towering presence. Oscar looks down at Tion and asks him why the heck he's helping Omari, referring to him as a shrimp. Tion starts to stutter and apologizes to Oscar. He tries to explain that he found an extra jersey that belonged to Omari before he can finish his sentence. Omari throws him over the nearby table, while Oscar's friends watch in satisfaction. Omari quickly comes between Oscar and Tion. He angrily asks Oscar what his problem is, while taking a defensive position to defend Tion. Oscar is a few feet taller than him and towers over him like a giant. Oscar bends down and puts a finger on his chest. He tells Omari that he doesn't have a problem, but reminds him that he's the one who took his sweet time, finishing his tests, which made all of them have to wait for him before they could go to the next phase. Omari just glares at him as he continues to talk. Oscar tells him that if he's that lame at basketball, then they should have just cut him already. The big guy jokes that it's funny that the organization is named Overtime Elite and says they may not be so elite after all, since they let trash like him get this far in the game. Oscar and his guys leave them and head to the next phase, while Omari tries to help Tion, who is still on the ground. Oscar tells them it doesn't matter anyway, and it doesn't matter how far either of them has come. As Omari helps Tion up, Oscar tells them they'll settle their issues on the basketball court. The big guy looks back at them and tells them he'll squash their silly dreams on the court. As the 3 guys step into the arena, Oscar jokes with his guys that a bench warmer like Tion could never share a court with him. Omari tells Tion that Oscar is a jerk and asks him if he knows it. Tion tells him Oscar's name. and tells them they're on the same team back home. He explains that the big guy has always been an incredible player and has spectacular skills. He further narrates that all that Oscar cares about is always being the best on the court. He says that Oscar will find a way to be the best on the court, no matter what it takes. And he tries his best to cast a shadow on everyone else. Including him, Tion starts to think about all that just happened, and he suddenly bows to Omari to apologize on behalf of Oscar's rudeness. Omari is taken aback by his apology and just stands there surprised. Our guy eventually tells him he has nothing to apologize for, since he's the one who helped him out. Omari asks Tion for his name and extends his hand to introduce himself. Tion cheerfully tells him his name and extends his own hands to shake him. Omari tells him he owes him big time and tells him his own name. The two look like they're going to be best of friends in the Overtime Elite Academy. Well, that's if they make it. Omari starts to change into the jersey, and he gives Tien some advice. He tells him that whether or not he and Oscar are teammates, he shouldn't let someone push him around like that. Tien just listens with a frown on his face, obviously regretting his relationship with Oscar. While they're both bonding, Dribble appears out of nowhere and tells them to hurry up, because Phase 2 is about to start. Omari smiles at Tien and tells him it looks like they can get back at Oscar in the next round. Tien just scratches his head and says he guesses so. He looks quite unsure of himself, and it seems he had just said that for the sake of saying it. Omari jokingly smacks him in the back of the head and tells him to be a little more enthusiastic as they both head to the door to begin Phase 2 of the tryouts. Oscar agrees, but stutters as he says it. The two boys cheerfully walk through the door and into the light. Not into the afterlife, but into what's next in their lives. As they enter the basketball arena, they find Dribble there with some sunglasses. As he anchors the event, Dribble explains that only 136 players have progressed to the next phase of the tryouts. He announces that the next round is an elimination game called Dribble Knockouts. He quickly lists out the rules of the game, while the boys stand clueless, and the crowd hails their favorite contestants. Dribble mentions that the first rule is that every player must maintain a constant dribble position throughout the game. This means they can't just be found standing around or doing illegal moves like traveling, which means to take too many steps before dribbling, double dribbling, or losing the ball out of their bounds. Dribble explains that they'll be eliminated if they do any of these things. The second rule is that players compete by knocking the opponent's ball from their hands. To eliminate them, they must do all this while still in a dribble position themselves. Dribble explains but they can use any body part to knock away the ball, which means they're not limited to their hand alone. Dribble mentions that if a player is eliminated, there's no need to worry, because they still have a chance to make it back into the court. Apparently, eliminated players become sideline defenders when they can re-enter the game by knocking an active player's ball and stealing possession. However, they are limited to the sidelines and cannot cross the boundary line around the perimeter of the court. Dribble continues that eliminating someone grants a player 1 point more, so sideline defenders who successfully steal a ball will swap points with the player they stole from. Omari and Tien just listen, surprised at the odd rules being read out. The final rule is that ranks will be tallied up at the end of the round. Anyone that is a sideline defender or not in the top 18. Players with the highest points at the end of the 10-minute timer will be banned from the game. This means only 18 of them will make it out this time. From the 1:36, the crowd begins to cheer loudly. Once the rules are announced, Dribble announces that scouts, sponsors, and superfans can now place their bets. He tells them he hopes they were watching closely during the Phase 1, and he hopes they have their favorite picks, since they have plenty of fantastic athletes today. Once the announcement is made, several of the scouts, sponsors, and super fans start to place bets, as low as $5,000 to as high as $23,000. Dribble asks the fans if they know which of the contestants have the potential to become one of the greatest players in basketball history. While they place their bets, the boys just stand there like horses, waiting for their owners to place their bets on them. Dribble announces that tonight they'll find out who has such potential. Omari's gaze wanders, and he notices Oscar and his gang by his right-hand side. Oscar looks at him with an evil grin on his face, hell-bent on destroying him. As the game is about to begin, Dribble cheerfully recaps the rules of the game, while the boys just stand in anticipation. A board is displayed that contains all the rules that Dribble had read out moments ago. Once the board has been displayed, Dribble orders that the game begin, and basketballs suddenly appear in the hands of all the contestants. As the countdown begins, Even Omari and Tien have their basketballs materialize in their hands, and it surprises them. The countdown continues, and the fans wait to watch the game, hoping they bet their money on the right horse. When the countdown runs out, Dribble instructs the boys to begin the game. Suddenly the boys start to bounce their balls in their hundreds, and everyone tries to hit the ball out of the hands of anyone. Close to him, it's a frenzy, and the boys fight like maniacs, both to score points and to continue playing. Meanwhile, Omari successfully knocks the ball out of the hands of one of the opponents, while some other guy tries to hit his hands. He thinks to himself, how all these players are trying to eliminate each other. In such a tight space like the high-loving freak that he is, he starts to enjoy the rush. In a matter of seconds, he avoids two guys who try to grab his ball and knocks out the ball out of another guy's hand. As he makes his way across his court, suddenly Omari runs into Tien, who is also making his way across the court. The duo stop right in their tracks, shocked to see one another. Omari is surprised to see Tien and doesn't try to hit the ball out of his hand, because they're friends as they both stand in front of each other. Omari wonders what he's going to do. Suddenly, Tien reaches for his ball and attempts to hit something. Omari is surprised that he tried to hit the ball out of his hands and realizes he's hesitated for too long. Actually, Tien moves past him and knocks the ball out of the hands of some other guy who is trying to eliminate Omari from behind. Omari looks behind him and realizes he wasn't Tien's target after all. The guy who Tien disqualified starts to curse as his basketball dematerializes. Omari is shocked to find out that Tien saved him. He suddenly reasons that that's how the game should be played, because in a game where everyone is trying to eliminate each other, having allies increases your chance of survival. Tien just stands there while passing him the ball from one hand to the other, and he smiles at Omari. The system awards Tien with one more point for successfully eliminating one of the contestants. While both guys are bonding on their newly found team, they hear a familiar voice nearby, which turns out to be Oscar, who has been looking for them all along. He approaches them with an evil grin, along with members of his team, and tells them he was worried he won't find them. Amidst the frenzy, he tells them he's here to keep the promise he had made them in the locker room, and grins widely. Omari and Tien frown at it, and Omari seems tired of running into them, referring to them as a holes. Omari just glares at them, waiting for Oscar and his guys to make the next move. Oscar tells his minions to get them, and two of them happily dash towards Tien and Omari, while still maintaining their dribble position. Omari reasons that it's going to be a 2-on-2 game, so he and Tien prepare to take on one of the guys. Omari quickly pulls back his left hand to dodge the advance of the guy facing him. He thinks to himself that the guy's attack wasn't so bad, and he quickly bounces the ball behind him to his other hand, while the guy looks for an opening to attack him. His opponent doesn't realize he's skilled enough to bounce the ball to his other arm from behind him and tries to figure out what Omari is doing. Omari tells him himself the guy may be good, but he's prepared for him because he's one step ahead. He quickly grabs his ball with the other hand, swerves under his opponent's reach, and proceeds to land his counterattack. Our guy reaches upwards as he slides and aims at his opponent's hand. He hits his opponent's hand, and the ball falls out of his reach as he lets out a shout of pain from the impact. Meanwhile, Oscar watches with bewilderment, wondering what is going on. It seems he has underestimated this brat. After all, the guy who Omari eliminated starts to curse as he watches his ball fall out of his reach and dematerialize. Omari quickly turns around to check out how Tien is doing. He notices that Tien is playing a defensive game of dodging his opponent's drive while he's trying to protect his ball. Tien keeps running away with the ball, with his opponent right behind him, hell-bent on eliminating just him. As his opponent closes the gap between them, he tells Tien he's finished and tries to knock the ball out of his hands. As he hits the ball in Tien's hands, the ball doesn't even move because of how tightly Tien is holding it. The guy is surprised that the ball didn't move an inch, and Oscar is also surprised and slightly frustrated. Omari just lights up, amazed by how strong a grip Tien has, while Tien's opponent is still in shock by the fact that the ball didn't leave Tien's hands. He quickly spins behind him and knocks out his ball from his hands. Omari watches closely and thinks to himself that it seems that people who make it to the overtime elite are people with extraordinary skills. Like Tien, he happily grins and tells him that this is getting him pumped up. Nearby, Oscar lets out an angry sigh and asks Omari what the heck he's smiling about suddenly. Oscar goes behind Tien while he's not looking. Tion suddenly realizes the towering presence behind it and tries to quickly react. As he turns around, he shouts out in horror when he realizes Oscar is already behind him. Oscar quickly kicks Tion's leg while he's moving and makes him trip. As Tion crashes to the ground, Oscar laughs at him and tells him he's trash. He actually believed he could survive in a place like Overtime Elite. Tion rises, only to watch in horror as his ball vanishes into thin air. And the brutal truth hits. He's out. Oscar sneers, telling Tion that weaklings like him are born to be forgotten. He laughs, telling him to erase any dream of ever going pro. Omari watches from the sidelines as Tion crumples, defeated and humiliated. Oscar spits venom. This court is where your dreams come to die. Omari's fists clench. This is getting under his skin. He fires back at Oscar, calling out the foul play, literally and morally, and asks him if he doesn't have any shame. The big guy grins widely and tells him he has no shame, because nothing brings him more excitement than crushing worthless dreamers, as he points to Tion, who just kneels on the court, as Oscar and the rest of his teammates ambush Omari. Dribble comes to tell Tion that he's eliminated. Dribble joyfully reminds him that he knows the rules and tells it goodbye. Dribble asks him to make his way out of the boundary line, and Tion sorrowfully does just that. Omari watches Tion walk past the boundary line, along to join the other folks who have been eliminated, and he starts to feel sympathetic for his friend. Nearby, Oscar asks Omari if he's going to cry as he reaches for his ball. He tells him it's better he joins Tion, referring to him as a loser, and tries to knock the ball right out of Omari's hand while he is looking as his hands almost hit Omari's hands. Omari does his quick move of bouncing the ball behind his back to his other hand as he moves backward. His move surprises Oscar, who is pretty sure his hands should have collided with Omari's ball. He watches in annoyance and asks him what just happened. Omari immediately tries to hit Oscar's hand, but he quickly bounces the ball to the next hand as he retreats. When Oscar moves backward, his teammates notice how close the attack was, and they ask him if Omari got his ball. Oscar considers how quickly Omari managed to dodge his attack and counterattack, so he decides to watch him from afar, just to be safe. He thinks to himself that this brat ball handle is not a joke at all. Meanwhile, Omari bounces the ball to and fro, behind him and even under his legs. Omari makes his way to another side of the court, and he realizes that players are getting eliminated left and right. He looks at the scoreboard and notices that 3 guys named Dev, Ken, and Ray are topping the board. Omari realizes that even if he manages to survive until the 10-minute timer runs out, without being eliminated, it doesn't mean anything. If he doesn't get enough points to rank among the top 18 players, he decides that he has to quickly defeat the players near him so he can make it to the next round. He runs into one guy who tries to knock out his ball, and when he does, he moves his ball behind him as usual and kicks the guy's ball away. Luckily, the game allows you to use any part of your body to knock out balls. The guy is shocked by Omari's move, since he didn't expect him to use his legs. He starts to sweat when he's hit by the morbid realization that he's been eliminated. Dribble soon comes around and tells the guy that he's eliminated. The guy tries to complain that Omari used his foot, but Dribble doesn't listen to his arguments. Meanwhile, Omari dashes across the court to continue scoring points. Oscar hisses at Omari and mentions that he's starting to get on his nerves, even calling him a bug. He tells his boys to ambush Omari and not to let him get away, because he won't let the bastard get to the next round. Omari looks behind him and sees Oscar's boys hot on his heels. He tells them that they may all be better at shooting and at other aspects of the game, but when it comes to navigating the court and dribbling, Omari confesses that that's his realm. In the twinkle of an eye, Omari makes his way across the court in a sprint, dashing between several guys and knocking their balls out of their hands, while smiling like a maniac. Of course, Oscar is shocked to see how fast he's moving and scoring points, since he's never seen anyone move like that on a court. He wonders how he's moving that fast. Meanwhile, Omari keeps sprinting across the court, knocking the ball out of the hands of whoever stands in his way. The superfans who are watching the game are surprised to realize that Omari is moving at a full sprint. They ask themselves how he manages to dodge and control the ball at such a speed. Inside the facility, Gray just smirks at the gameplay, because he had expected this to happen. He thinks to himself that the other trials challenged Omari's weakness. He recalls how well Omari was able to dodge and dribble him during their game. He mentions that it's time for them to finally witness a stage where he knew Omari would shine. Omari continues on his journey to become one of the top 18 players. He tells himself that he gave up life changing money for this opportunity, so there's no way he's going to let it go easily. Still running through the court, he tells himself that the sacrifice that he made, as well as his dream, cannot die here. He continues to run past several guys on the field, and he seems to knock the ball out of the hands of about 5 guys. In just a few seconds suddenly, our guy almost goes past the boundary lines and has to stop himself from going over. With a loud screech over the line, several thirsty players reach towards him just to get a chance to knock the ball out of his hands so they can get back into the game. They all jump over each other just to get a chance to touch him. Omari realizes that he's gotten so many points from knocking down balls, and he can't let them steal his ball from him. If they steal his ball, he'll get eliminated, and he'd have to switch points with whoever gets his ball. He cautions himself that he can't get too close to the boundary line. Omari checks the countdown timer and realizes the time has almost run out. So all he has to do is just hold out for a few more moments, and he'll make it to the next round. While he stands close to the boundary line that holds back the bloodthirsty players, Oscar corners him from behind and jokes that there's nowhere for him to run to. Oscar, who is now panting because he had been chasing him all along, commends his agility. Behind him are 2 members of his team who have also been chasing Omari. Omari just stands there between the devil and the big red line. Oscar tells him that basketball is a team sport, and he doesn't have a chance of survival all on his own. Omari smirks at him and asks if that's really so, since he's higher up on the leaderboard. Even though he's a one-man team, his statement stings Oscar, who growls at him and looks for a way to eliminate it. Oscar soon runs out of patience, just like Omari wanted, and moves toward Omari himself. He tells him he'll destroy him by himself this time, and he won't send his boys. Omari just smirks at him and tells him he's been waiting for that. Our guy jokes that Oscar finally has the guts to take him on and starts to sprint towards a big guy, who is surprised to see him coming with full force. Oscar becomes alerted, wondering why Omari would decide to charge at him at full speed. He reasons that at this speed, they'll crash into each other and both lose their balls. Omari doesn't seem to care and continues to charge toward him. Before Omari reaches him, Oscar decides it's not worth it and suddenly spins away from him and goes behind. Our guy just looks back at him and asks him where he thinks he's going. He quickly turns around and rushes toward Oscar one more time. Omari moves towards him at breakneck speed, which gets Oscar worried, because he can't figure out why he's still coming after him, afraid that they'll crash into one another. Oscar decides that he has to create some space, so he moves a bit backward, but he doesn't realize he's just an inch away from the red line behind him. Tien shows up behind him and grabs the opportunity to knock the ball out of Oscar's hands while he isn't watching. In a split second, Tien knocks the ball out of the hands of a surprised Oscar, and he doesn't know what hit him. He falls to the ground as his ball starts to dematerialize, and he realizes that his own dream of getting to the pro leagues is gone with the ball. A stark realization hits him, and tears start to fill his eyes as he asks what just happened to him. One minute he was avoiding Omari. The next his dream is being crushed. Dribble pops up and excitedly tells Tion and Oscar to switch places and points. Tion comes back into the court with an evil look on his face, while Oscar just lies on the ground. It looks like it isn't his dream that's being crushed today. From behind him, Oscar hears Omari tell him he's right about what he said. Omari moves forward and stands in front of Tion. He tells Oscar that he was right to say that it's easier to win with a team. It turns out Tion is his own team. Seconds later, the system declares that the game is over, after the 10-minute timer runs out. As the system displays that the game is over, Tien celebrates that he was able to make it into the next round, while Oscar still remains on the ground. Oscar starts to curse when he realizes he lost. The worst part is that he lost to these 2 short boys whose dreams he had sworn to crush just minutes ago. Meanwhile, Omari carries Tion on his back as they both celebrate making it into the top 18 contestants. Oscar realizes that the clear path to his dream of becoming a world-renowned basketball player has been crushed in just a matter of minutes. He clenches his teeth in anger and calls Omari and Tion bastards. He screams at them and asks them if they think what just happened means anything. Omari is surprised to hear his voice, so he turns back to see him. Oscar, who is now angrily crying his eyes out, tells them that he doesn't need overtime elite to achieve his dream. He promises to climb up to the pro leagues all on his own, while still having tears rain down his eyes. He also tells them that when he does climb up to the pro leagues, they better be waiting for him. Oscar starts to say the things he'll do to them if he ever finds them again. and Tion becomes tired of hearing him blab all day. He threatens that he'll slaughter them the next time they meet. Soon after, all the losers walk away dejected with tears in their eyes, realizing they won't go farther than their local basketball teams. Oscar notices Omari's eyes fixed on Oscar, so he tells him not to take Oscar's words seriously. But Omari doesn't answer him at all. Omari, who is dripping with sweat, grabs his chest when his heart starts to beat a little too fast. He realizes his heart is pounding like crazy and grabs his chest. Hopefully he doesn't have a heart attack. His heart continues to beat, and he grips his chest much longer to try to stabilize himself. Omari thinks to himself that he eliminated Oscar without even thinking. He realizes that in only 10 minutes, they've managed to crush the dreams of hundreds of people. He watches the losers walk out of the arena, weeping because they've lost their shot at ever becoming who they've been dreaming of becoming ever since they were little kids. Omari starts to wonder why he's feeling like he is, and why he is suddenly trembling. He realizes that amidst the hundreds who came to compete, he gets to move forward. He realizes that he's feeling this way because he can lose his lifelong dreams at any moment. Since this competition is so high risk, he realizes the feeling of being on the edge of life and death. Omari decides that he's feeling this way because he knows he gets to keep playing basketball up until the professional leagues. A smirk suddenly develops on his face, and he exclaims about how much of a rush he's getting from feeling this way. This guy's crazy. When they get back into the locker room, Omari goes to have some water, and Tion excitedly tells Omari he can't believe he managed to pull that off, because he had pretty much given up after Oscar eliminated him. He continues to talk about how Omari tossed him an incredible opportunity, and exclaims excitedly. He continues by saying Omari made it happen. While he's talking, Omari stops drinking his water, so Tion stops talking because he thinks he's talking too much. He apologizes by saying he sometimes blabbers when he's talking about basketball. Omari tells him it's not a problem and tells him to keep going because he had stopped to hand him the water bottle. Omari smiles at him and tells him he likes it when he has teammates who talk, so he hands him the water bottle since he must be dehydrated. Tion just slightly blushes and grabs the water bottle. He then proceeds to thank Omari again for all he's done for him. He explains that he's always been at a disadvantage because of his height. Tion recounts that Oscar would always tell him that he didn't stand a chance to get scouted as a center because of his height. Looking dejected, he explains that he gets it because the average height of a pro player is half a foot taller. He angrily squeezes the water bottle and boldly declares that he loves basketball regardless. He mentions that he doesn't care if it'll always be an uphill battle, and he has to spend the rest of his life battling giants on the court. He concludes by saying that he already knows that this is what he wants to do with his life, with a spark in his eyes. He says this is the reason that he wants to show everyone that even though he's small, he can play basketball at a high level. When Tion asks Omari what he thinks, he's surprised by the question and asks him why his point of view matters. Omari eventually tells him that he thinks it'll be really cool if he still manages to win, even if he's shorter than everyone else. Omari mentions that that would be pretty cool, and his words encourage Tion. Tion excitedly agrees and wildly squeezes the water into his mouth. Omari tells him not to let it get into his head, though he starts to talk to him about what Dribble said their next game will be like. And Tion mentions that Dribble had said it'll be a 3 versus 3 match, which means a team of 3 will play against another team of 3. Our guy smiles in excitement about how awesome this will be and mentions that this will be the first time he'll be playing with an official team. While they talk, they realize that they don't know how they're going to find their third teammate. They look around and notice that everyone except them seems to have paired up in groups of 3, which means they have to do something soon. Tion becomes worried that they're going to have to play against the others as 2 players, and Omari sarcastically tells him he doubts that there are 18 of them, and that's not possible if he does the math. In the secret room where the scouts are, Gray enjoys a cup of red wine as they all watch the game. He seems to be quite happy that his contestant has gotten this far. Some of the other guys nearby ask him if Omari is the kid he's got his money on, and he proudly agrees, still sipping his wine. He proudly tells them that they all witnessed his dribbling instincts and his adaptability. He continues by saying he's not sure there's anyone at these tryouts that he can't pass. One other scout sitting nearby agrees, but asks him if Omari can score. The man tells him that to win in basketball, you have to score more than your enemy. He insists that scoring is all that matters. The man explains that this is the very reason. He believes that his candidate is more interesting than Gray's Omari. He explains that his candidate may not have been flashy in the dribbling contest, but when it came to shooting, he was the only player from both the West and the East Coast who shot 100% from the field. Meanwhile, the man's contestant walks into the locker room, and everyone turns around to look at him, even Omari and Tion. The man continues by describing his contestant as a sharpshooting god. The gray-haired boy walks into the boys' locker room with a defiant look in his eyes. The man mentions that his name is Jaden Brooks. When Jaden steps into the locker room, Omari immediately remembers him as the exceptional shooter he met at the shooting range when he just arrived for his tests, and he's excited to see him. Tien asks him if he knows him, so Omari says he doesn't, but he remembers watching him shoot earlier at the shooting range. He explains that he has never seen anyone with such a perfect form in person before. Recalling Jaden's exceptional form, focus, and accuracy, both boys glance at one another, wondering if they're both thinking the same thing. They both ambush Jaden, who is at least a foot taller than them, and ask him if he wants to join their team. Jaden seems surprised to be ambushed by them, just minutes after he had just walked in. He looks at them in surprise and asks them if they want him to join them. Omari scratches his head in embarrassment and confesses that they're looking for a third player for the game. In the next round, Jaden just looks at him squarely and tells him he saw him in the second round. Omari stands valiantly with his chest pushed out, recalling how well he did in the last round. Omari suddenly lights up and scratches his head in embarrassment again, while he rhetorically asks Jaden if he saw him. Jaden mentions that his dribbling seems good enough. His words burst Omari's bubble, and his eyes become blank as he hesitantly accepts the compliment. To be sure, he heard just right. Omari asks him what he means by good enough, and Jaden doesn't answer Tion, just laughs at Omari's expression. Jaden tells Omari that he only has one question. He asks him why he's teaming up with Tion, since he was eliminated in the last round. Tien starts to sweat and tries his best to keep a smile. Jaden continues by saying that the only reason he's still here is because Omari opened an opportunity for him. He continues by asking Omari if he really thinks that someone like Tien, who can't survive on his own and has to rely on others, is a good choice for a teammate in a place like this. He even adds that Tion's height could also pose a problem to them. Tion now has a sour look on his face and loses his smile. Omari butts in and tells Jaden that if there's anything he's learned from the game, it's that overtime elite isn't about just individual talent, but it's also about teamwork. He explains that in the second round, Tien saved him when he knocked the ball out of the hands of an opponent. He couldn't see. He also recounts how Tien had maintained an extraordinary grip when his opponent had tried to knock the ball out of his hands, only to knock the ball out of the opponent's hands seconds later. Omari confesses that he wouldn't still be in the game without Tien. His words shock Jaden, who just stands there speechless with his mouth open. Our guy also adds that Tion won't be here without him, which is the point of teamwork. He concludes by saying that Jaden would have to take them as a package deal if he wants to play the third round with them. Jaden considers his options and notices that the other members have paired up, and they didn't want to recruit him because he doesn't seem to have performed in a visibly extraordinary way in the last round. He wishes he could get a game that would let his talent shine. If you ask me, this is his thing. Jaden looks at Omari and realizes that he seems to know what he's capable of doing. Omari just stands there side by side with Tien, who just stands there looking like an abandoned child. Dribble appears in the room out of nowhere, as usual, and tells the boys that their time for picking teams is up. He asks them if they're all ready, and the boys just look at him bewildered. Dribble tells Omari and the other guys that every other person has already registered their teams and asks them what's holding them up. Jaden sighs and eventually agrees to their proposition. He tells himself that it doesn't matter if they hold him back, as long as they can pass the ball to him. Though when he tells them he'll join their little team, Omari screams out in excitement, and Tien lets out a sigh of relief. When they get back into the arena, Dribble announces to the people that they've reached the final round of the overtime elite tryout. He explains that they filled the stand with a holographic audience to accompany the executives, scouts, and superfans, just like in a professional game environment. Dribble asks the crowd to make some noise, and the holographic audience goes wild, cheering and clapping. Dribble decides to go over the rules for the third round. Meanwhile, The overtime elite executives watch the game closely from their booth. Dribble declares that round 3 will have a team of 3 people play against another team. In a 3 versus 3 matchup, he further explains that the normal time you can possess the ball without shooting in basketball is 24 seconds, but in this special game, they've reduced the possession rule to 10 seconds. He adds that this game has a special scoring rule. With a smirk, Dribble announces that there's a special benefit to scoring from behind a 3-point line. The benefit is that whoever scores from behind a 3-point line gets 10 points instead of 3 points. He explains that there will be 3 matches, and 3 teams will stand as winners. After these matches, he excitedly announces that teams that win will receive an offer to the Overtime Elite Academy. Dribble continues to hype the crowd, and he asks them if they're ready for this special game of basketball. Down below, Jaden commends the little furball's ability to get a crowd going, with Omari and Tien behind him. The 3 boys step into the court. When they learn that their team is one of the first teams to play, Omari, who has been keenly paying attention, explains that this game seems to prioritize those who can shoot. He further explains that with a reduced timer, they'd have to shoot faster than normal. More so, the point allocation for shooter, a 3-pointer, is over 3 times when you shoot close to the hoop. Jaden starts to stretch and tells him that if they want to win, they'd likely have to focus on shooting 3-pointers. He looks at them and asks them how their shooting skills are. Omari confesses that he's not the best at shooting 3-pointers, and Tien says the same thing. Jaden lets out a sigh and tells them he has figured out that much. He tells them that's no problem and tells them to just pass it. Omari looks excited to have Jaden on the team, and Tien seems more relieved than excited. Jaden mentions that he hopes the other team can't shoot so well either. Soon enough, the other team of 3 guys who they'll be facing steps out. The other team looks pretty relaxed as they walk towards Omari and his team. Gray looks at the new team more closely and smirks, realizing the game is going to be a tough one. Jaden starkly tells the guys that they aren't very lucky. Omari just smiles when he sees their opponent, but Tien looks a little worried. The team they're up against is Team C, the top-ranked overtime elite tryout team. They're also one of the 3 highest-ranking players. In the last round, the guy on a low cut with his hands behind his head is named Ray. Our Jamaican-looking brother with the dreadlocks is named Luke. The last guy who is behind is named Devin. Devin waves at the guys and tells them he hopes they all have a good game. The boys come to the middle of the ring to start the game. Luke confirms Omari's name and tells him that he saw his play in the 2nd round against Oscar, and commends that it was really balls of stuff. The team seems stunned by their opponent's appraisal, but Devin just tells Omari that he respects his gameplay and introduces himself. Omari accepts his handshake and introduces himself. Devin wishes him a good game, and Omari does the same. Omari thinks to himself that Devin is a pretty nice guy behind him. Jaden asks Omari if he's done making friends, but Omari tells him that they're just showing sportsmanship. Jaden asks if he wants to become the best, and says he assumes that's why he came to Overtime Elite. He adds that this means he'd better be ready to crush Devin's dream if he needs to, and those words get to Omari. Our boy recalls how they crushed Oscar's dream, and he reasons that Jaden is probably right. He tells himself that to survive here at the Overtime Elite, you have to kill someone else's dream to go pro. He realizes that this is probably why everyone here is so cutthroat. Omari tells himself that his strong desire to win doesn't mean he has to end up as heartless as the others. Suddenly Dribble comes up and excitedly asks the boys if they're ready. Once he announces that the game begins, Devin and Omari simultaneously rush to grab the ball. Surprise strikes. Our guy stunned how fast the other side snatched the ball. He realizes Devin's leaping power isn't just hype, it's real. Ray snatches the ball, nodding in respect for Devin's slick tip-off. He whispers, "You handed it over on purpose, didn't you?" Ray flashes a wicked grin. "Don't worry, I'll make it count." Omari's still locked onto Devin, trying to hold the line. Ray blazes by like lightning. Omari's eyes go wide in disbelief. Omari pivots hard, breaking into pursuit, but Devin cuts him off. No escape routes left, and both opponents charge toward the hoop, a clash inevitable. Omari sees Devin and Ray heading right for Jaden, and he realizes that Devin is going to block Jaden to give Ray enough time to make a shot. Devin does just that and blocks Jaden, giving Ray the chance to slip past. Devin uses his hand to hold back Jaden so he can't pursue Ray. Ray sweeps past them and runs into Tion, who is the only one stopping him from the hoop. As he moves closer, He tells Tion to pay attention to what he's about to do. Tion positions himself to guard against the throw, but Ray tells him that what he's about to do is stylish. Ray makes as if he wants to go to his left, but quickly turns in the other direction when Tion tries to block. In a split second, Tion looks back and realizes Ray has passed, but Ray tells him that he's too slow. Meanwhile, Omari rushes after Ray and tells the other not to worry, because he's got him. Omari wonders how Ray was able to get past Jaden and Tien, like it was nothing as he closes in on Ray, who is about to score. He reasons that his speed and reactions are no joke. Suddenly, Ray jumps off to score the hoop, and Omari tells himself that he needs to stop him here, as Ray is about to dunk. Omari jumps up to block the ball before it enters. Ray smirks at him, and Omari realizes he's about to change his approach. Instead of shooting the ball in, Ray throws it back at Devin and tells Omari that he can have the spotlight if he wants to. Our boy turns around and sees Devin jumping toward the hoop to make a shot. It's too late for him to respond, and Devin Slam dunks the ball into the hoop, telling them to die after the score. Russell asks Tion, "What's up with these guys?" And Tion wonders why Devin used the term die. When the game continues, Jaden gets the ball, and he tells the other boys to be alert so they can get back at their opponents. As Jaden rushes forward with the ball, he is ambushed by Ray and Luke and doesn't know what direction to go in. Ray smirks at him and tells him to move forward and do something cool, but Luke tells Jaden that he'll be crushing him here. Jaden smirks and tells them that he loves the attention but would prefer if they screw off. Tien waves at Jaden and signals for him to pass to him. Jaden realizes that Tien is open and quickly turns to pass the ball to him. Before he can throw, he feels a sharp sting in his legs and turns around to see what hit him. It turns out to be Ray, who had poked his leg and slid past him to get the ball. Ray rushes towards the ball and tells Jaden that he's too slow. He quickly passes the ball to Luke, who loudly declares that the ball is his. Luke throws the ball to Devin, who catches it and says the gameplay is perfect. Devin makes a shot from where he is and scores another point. The scoreboard is shown, and Team C has 4 points, while Team D has 0 points. Shortly after, Jaden gets possession of the ball again and heads towards the opponent's hoop. On his way, he is ambushed by Ray and Luke again. Jaden hisses, and Omari rushes to help him. He wonders why they're double-teaming Jaden, and wonders if it's because they know he can shoot better than his teammates. Omari suddenly realizes that they're doing it because of the reduced time. They can have possession of the ball. Because of the reduced timer, they have to pass the ball between each other. But he realizes that Luke and Ray are hoping they can shut them down by pinning Jaden as Omari rushes to help him. He wonders if Jaden's ball handling is weak. He tells himself that's not possible. Otherwise, he would have been eliminated in the second round, and he wonders why they're ambushing him. He watches Jaden keep playing, and he notices the way he's moving his feet. Omari suddenly realizes that Jaden's footing is weak. Suddenly, Luke grabs the ball out of Jaden's hands and rushes away with it. Omari realizes something horrific and senses that Jaden is playing with an injury. Meanwhile, Jaden collapses to the ground as Luke grabs the ball out of his hands. In a flashback to last year's East Coast Regional Finals, Jaden scores an amazing shot. The commentator excitedly announces that Jaden has sunk another three-pointer. He announces that the sharpshooter is on fire, and his three-pointers have made scoring 30 points effortless. Jaden celebrates with his teammate Mike, who playfully asks him if it would kill him to stop being so dope. For once, Mike tells him that if they keep this up, they'll definitely win the regionals. There's 73-53 on the scoreboard, and Mike tells Jaden that they're leading but can still widen the gap. Jaden asks if they're aiming to win the nationals and tells Mike to just keep passing to him. He says he'll keep scoring and make their dreams come true. Mike smiles and calls Jaden a cocky bastard. He jokes that as the captain, he should discipline him. The captain tells Jaden that he can wait till later and says it's time to win the game. Suddenly, one of the players on the opposing team rushes toward Jaden, and Jaden wonders why he's not slowing down. The guy keeps charging toward him and doesn't slow down to try to dribble him. Moments later, the guy rams right into Jaden and knocks him to the ground. As the guy falls on Jaden, he notices a sly grin on his face, making it clear that he's doing it intentionally. The guy sets his elbow in place over Jaden's leg and smashes into his legs to give him an injury. Later, Jaden is hospitalized after a serious injury and is put in a wheelchair. The doctor tells him and his mother that Jaden's torn Achilles is quite a serious injury. He says that with proper rest and recommended physical therapy, things should be able to return to normal. which is a great relief for Jaden's mother. Jaden quickly asks the doctor about his basketball career. He asks when he can return to his team, and his mother looks at him expressionlessly. The doctor tells Jaden that the damage to the tendon in his leg is quite permanent, and that he might lose his ability to walk if he were to injure his leg, as the doctor tells him that. His recommendation is to give up basketball. Jaden becomes horrified and begins to sweat profusely. Sometime later, Jaden wheels himself into a park where there's a basketball court. He stops his wheelchair right next to the court and watches the kids play. Suddenly his phone begins to ring and he picks it up. It turns out to be Mike, so he apologizes, saying he was in surgery and hasn't been able to return his calls. Jaden asks him how the match went and if they won. Mike starkly tells him that they lost and promises that they gave it everything they had. Jaden listens to him over the phone and seems horrified that they lost their chance at winning the Nationals. Mike tells him that it looks like they needed him after all. He says that their season is officially over. Mike adds that he'll be graduating this year and called to say it was an honor to play by his side these past few years. Jaden drops the phone from his ear while Mike is still talking, and tears flow from his eyes. While Mike is still talking, Jaden ends the call. He asked himself if this is how things are going to turn out because of that fool who gave him an injury. Their dreams of playing in the Nationals have to die. Jaden starts to tremble as his anger builds. He asks if they hadn't said they were going to win the Nationals together. He forces himself to stand on his broken leg and says that it's unfair. He reaches out his hand toward the park, basketball hoop, and with tears in his eyes, he tells himself that he doesn't want to give up on basketball. He walks on his broken leg, but his legs falter and he falls on his back. Back in the present, Jaden remembers that terrible experience, and tears start to roll down his eyes again. He tells himself that he came to the overtime elite. For one last chance, he watches Luke run to the hoop to score, and wonders if this is really where his dream ends. Luke slams the ball through the hoop and scores another shot. Jaden watches the ball fall to the ground, but Omari walks up to him to help him up. Omari tells him that he must really love basketball to still be playing with an injury like that. Omari smiles at him and says he respects that. Jaden remembers his love for basketball since his childhood until this moment, and Omari asks him if he isn't giving up yet. Jaden takes his hand and says he's not done. He tells Omari that he's already decided to put everything on the line for his dream. He tells Omari to pass the ball to him one more time, and he'll prove it to him. A fire burns in Jaden's eyes, and he says he'll bring their team to the highest level of basketball and to a stage that the world cannot ignore. At this point, the score on the leaderboard is 10 points to 2 points. Omari gets the ball once more and moves toward the opponent's hoop. As he moves, he reasons that because of a decrease in ball possession time to 10 seconds, they have to pass the ball if they want to score quickly. He sees Luke and Ray blocking Jaden and realizes that Jaden is completely shut down because of the duo teaming against him. Devin comes to get the ball from Omari, but Omari notices that Tion is open. Devin quickly blocks his path to Tien and tells him not to be so predictable. Meanwhile, the ball possession timer is at 6 seconds. Omari reasons that Devin's perception is pretty good for him to be able to cut off his passing lane to Tien. While waiting for the time to run out, he gets another idea and corners past Devin, deciding to beat him himself. Devin notices his sharp cornering and angrily hisses. The gap creates enough time for Omari to pass to Tien before Devin can come to block the pass. Tion smirks as he grabs the ball and commends Omari on a nice pass. Luke and Ray realize they aren't passing to Jaden, so they rush back when they realize the gameplay has changed. Tion rushes toward the open hoop and tells them, this is what happens when you focus your defense on one person. With Luke on his tail, he jumps toward the hoop and scores the shot. The leaderboard gets updated and Team D gets 4 points against Team C's 10 points. Luke angrily curses when he realizes their opponent has scored on them. Luke calls Devin a Dumbo and says these freaks scored, but Devin tells him to stick to the plan. Luke tells him that Jaden is washed, and they don't need two of them to guard the loser. Devin tells him that the way they win is by suppressing their three-pointers, and he reminds him that they're still ahead. Luke insists that he's more than enough to shut down the one-legged bastard's three-pointers, and he tells him to let Ray deal with the short kid. Referring to Tien, Devin tells him to calm down and reminds him that his plan is still working. Luke angrily asks him what's working about his plan when these scrubs had a clear path to the basket without anyone to block them. Luke adds that it's all because Devin couldn't defend against Omari, and they both lock horns. Ray tells the others to focus, because it's not stylish for them to keep arguing. Devin agrees with him and reminds the boys that they're still ahead. Devin grabs the ball and rushes toward the opponents. He tells them that all that matters in the end is that they keep scoring. As he moves forward, Devin comes toe-to-toe with Omari, who is guarding against him. Omari asks him if he's here for round 2. But Devin tells him that he's now getting on his nerves. Devin stops in front of him and bounces the ball around to stop him from grabbing. In flashback to the time before the game, Luke asks Devin if he's sure that Jaden is the person he's describing. Devin tells them that he's positive and says that he was the bastard that took out his team from the East Coast quarterfinals. Last year, he tells them that Jaden was a legendary shooter. Luke asks Devin why he didn't team up with Jaden, if that's the case. Devin begins to laugh when they ask him that question, and his teammates wonder what's so funny. He tells the guys that he didn't team up with Jaden because someone else put the piece of trash in his place and injured him before he got his chance at revenge. He recalls his loss to Jaden and tells the guys that the bastard ended his team's journey. He recalls Jaden's last shot while he laid on the ground. He tells the guys that this is the reason. He wants them to go against him. In the next round, Devin tells them of his plan to destroy him and end this properly. Meanwhile, in the present game, Devin crouches and dashes past Omari as he zooms off with the ball. He laughs inside himself that all Omari is good at his dribbling and that he can't guard well. He suddenly stops in his tracks when he runs into Tion. Tion guards the path to the hoop and tells him that he's not getting past him. Devin is surprised to see him and wonders what on earth is wrong with him. He notices that Tion is short, but he can't see any opening. Luke calls Devin a Dumbo and asks him why he stopped before Luke can finish his sentence. Omari rushes under him and knocks the ball out of Devin's hands, commending Tion for the great defense. Devin is startled and realizes that Tion was placed there as a distraction. Luke and Ray are shocked at the turn of events, and Omari reminds Jaden that he had said to pass the ball to him. He tells him he's going to do just that. Omari throws the ball to Jaden and tells him this is his chance, and Jaden catches the ball. He quickly jumps up to shoot from where he is, and he's glad to finally get a chance to shoot. He sees that the hoop isn't guarded, and he realizes the shot is open. Luke exclaims and asks why on earth no one is guarding Jade, and Ray asks if he's just going to stylishly shoot from the court. Luke runs toward him and tells him there's no way he's going to make the shot. Luke tries to mess with him and says the East Coast Regionals are the furthest he'll ever go, and Jaden angrily asks him why he's still talking, as Ray and Luke rush to take the ball from him. He makes his shot from the court, and he thinks about why he returned to basketball, even though he had an injury. He tells himself that the reason is simple, and watches as the ball flies toward the hoop. Much to Luke's dismay, seconds later, the ball enters the hoop, and they score 10 points. They score 10 points because three-pointers are 10 points in this game. Jaden tells himself that the reason he came back is because he loves basketball. He smiles as he watches the ball enter the hoop, and his teammates come to celebrate with him. Jaden tells himself that nothing is going to stop him from reaching his dream. Jaden flashes back to the time when the doctor broke the news to him. The doctor apologizes and tells him he wishes he had better news, but confesses that it's best for him to give up on basketball. In the present, he scores far off in the court, and they get 10 points. The virtual crowd, as well as the super fans and executives, rejoice at the sight of the shot. Omari jokingly tells Jaden that it looks like he can pass after all, and Jaden tells him to shut up. He tells Omari that if he wants to win, he should just keep passing to him. Omari smiles at him and calls him an arrogant ball hogger. Omari jokingly asks him if he really thinks he and Tion are going to let him have the spotlight. As the game continues, Luke says it's clear why they had to injure Jaden in the leg, because his range of shots is impressive. Meanwhile, Devin moves the ball and tries to get past Tion. He tells the others that it's all still good. He passes the ball behind him to another person and says all they have to do is score right back. Tion is shocked to see him pass the ball behind his back, and he looks at where the ball went. Devin distracts Tien by moving past him, but he passes the ball behind his back to Luke. Before Tien can respond, Luke passes the ball back to Devin. As Devin rushes towards the hoop, Omari appears in front of him and tries to stop him. Omari tells him sorry, but says he has to stop him here. As Ray rushes past them to station himself close to the hoop, Devin retorts that he's the one who's supposed to be apologizing. He tells Omari that it's too bad he's on Jaden's team, because he's collateral damage. Devin faces another direction to distract Omari, and he passes the ball to Ray. Jaden tries to block Ray, but Ray throws the ball toward the hoop. The ball hits the ring and bounces off. Ray frowns and tells himself that his throw wasn't so stylish. He checks the timer and sees he had 4 seconds left to possess the ball, and he says that shooting a three-pointer under these conditions is crazy. Omari commends Jaden for the nice pressure he applied, and he tries to tell him to rebound. Little does he know that Devin is right behind him, running towards the hoop to slam the ball in. As Devin prepares to jump, he tells himself that he's sacrificed too much to get to these tryouts. He jumps towards the ball and tells himself that he's lost it all. Once before he grabs the ball and prepares to smash it in, and he tells himself there's no choice but to win here. Tion watches in horror as Devin smashes the ball into the hoop and scores 2 extra points for his team. Devin kicks Tion in the back as he jumps back down. When he lands, Ray and Luke come to celebrate with him. Luke tells Devin that his gameplay isn't bad, and Ray thanks him for the save. Tien, who is still on the ground, hisses due to the pain suddenly. Omari reaches out his hand to help Tien up, and he asks him if he's good. Tien smiles and tells him he's fine. Omari grabs his hand and pulls him up and tells him that they're just getting started. The game continues, and the boys advance towards their opponent, with Tien possessing the ball. Omari passes Devin, and Tien passes him the ball. Devin turns around to face him and tells him that he sure smiles a lot during the game. Devin tells him that a newbie like him must be happy being on the court. He mentions that he's newer to playing with a team, but Omari just looks at him. Devin guesses that this must be his first real game. Omari tells him that he's from New York and asks him if he really thinks he's going to get into his head. Omari passes the ball to his side and runs to get it as he wishes Devin good luck. Devin quickly turns around and he dashes close to Omari. He tells our boy that all this running around is finally catching up to him, and Omari is shocked to see him move so quickly in a split second. Devin grabs the ball out of his hands. After he grabs the ball, he turns back and tells him he's lucky that he gets a second chance. As he passes to Ray, Ray collects the ball with a smirk, and Devin tells Omari that it doesn't matter if he has Jaden on his team, since the rest of them can't keep up. Ray smirks, and he attempts a three-pointer from the court. The ball enters the hoop, and Devin tells him that he's already lost his dream once, and he won't let losers like them take it away again. Omari is shocked that he could take the ball from him, and Devin tells them to give it everything they've got. He tells them not to hold back. He turned back to Jaden and tells him that he needs to crush them at their best. The leaderboard updates Team C's score to 22 points, while Team D is on 14 points. In a flashback to years ago, while Omari was playing in their neighborhood basketball court, he practices on his own and does his own commentary. He imagines himself in a large stadium and imagines himself as a rookie sensation with the ball amidst several opponents. The commentator asks how he will carve his path forward, while there are several giant opponents in front of him. Omari smiles sheepishly before he plays his shot, but his daydreaming abruptly comes to an end when he hears someone shout his name. Omari returns to reality and sees his aunt by the court, asking him to help her with the groceries. She tells him that she still has some work to do, and asks him if he minds giving her a hand with dinner. He hesitates, and she asks him if he's listening to her at all. Omari looks dejected as he walks toward her, while still looking back at his basketball. Suddenly he hears a loud crash, and he looks back at his aunt. His aunt crashes to the ground, and Omari rushes to help her. Later on, his aunt is hospitalized after she fainted, and Omari stands beside her. He tells her that she's always pushing herself too far. Finally, he sits down in a nearby chair and tells himself that he needs to start pulling his weight too. In the present, Omari tells himself that sometimes a dream is just a dream. Devin manages to score another shot, and Team C gets 26 points, while Team D still has 14 points. Some of the scouts chat that it seems the game is picking up, and Gray agrees. Gray starts to become tense and asks if everyone will be able to match the pace. Meanwhile, Omari gets the ball again and dribbles past Ray. Ray looks back at him and wonders how he's able to still move like that. As Omari moves closer to the hoop, Luke appears in front of him and tells him he'll stop him here. Omari quickly responds and passes the ball to Tion, who is open. Tion makes a throw and it enters the hoop. The leaderboard updates and gives Team D 16 points, causing Tion to celebrate. As they celebrate, Omari tells himself that he hates to admit it, but Devin was right. He admits that he isn't used to a fast-paced game like this. Meanwhile, Luke scores and gets his team 28 points. Omari thinks about how they're constantly fighting to score, as Jaden scores a two-pointer. He also considers how they're constantly struggling to defend. Meanwhile, Luke scores another point and gets his team up to 30 points. He wonders how he's supposed to keep up in this chaotic game. As he moves towards the opponent's hoop, Devin blocks him again and scorns that he's finally reached his limit. Devin tells him that someone as pathetic as him deserves to have it all end here. Once more, Devin grabs the ball out of Omari's hand. Much to his horror, Devin smirks as he makes his way to the hoop to score once more. Omari looks back in shock. Jaden curses and tells Tion to get back to block Devin. Omari watches Devin go for the hoop, and he tells himself that his dream of going pro is over if they score one more three-pointer. He thinks about how he's pushed himself so much today and considers how he can barely move. He tells himself that he may have been wrong to chase this crazy dream. He tells himself that coming to the overtime elite was all a mistake. Marie tells himself his life will be a lot simpler if he just let go of this dream. Already he lays on the ground and imagines himself falling into a graveyard with his dream. Suddenly Tion yanks his jersey and asks him what on earth he's doing by just standing there. Tion shouts at him and tells him he's not allowed to die yet. Tion rushes past him and manages to knock the ball out of Devin's hands. Devin looks back at him and wonders how this kid is still playing at 100%. Tion quickly passes the ball to Omari. Omari grabs the ball and he doesn't seem to know what to do next. Tion calls out to him, so he looks up at him. Tion runs towards him with Devin on his tail. Tion asks him if he can still run and reminds him that it's not just his dream that's on the line. Tien tells him to get his behind up because they're not done yet. Omari is challenged by those words, and he turns around to make his way to the hoop. Ray is shocked to see that Omari is still going, and Luke notices that he's got a wide open chance to score a two-pointer. Devin is shocked when Omari stops running, and he also stops. He tells them not to tell him that Omari plans to shoot from where he is. Omari stands on the court and jumps up to shoot a three-pointer. Omari reasons that Tion is right. As he shoots the ball, he tells himself he can't believe he was so selfish. He recalls that he's so used to playing by himself that he almost thought this was just about his dream. He tells himself that this is about the entire team. Omari tells himself that he doesn't care if his body breaks here because he needs to push himself beyond for the sake of everyone. The ball flies into the air and enters right into the hoop. The leaderboard updates and gives Team D 28 points.